The next topic under sale of goods act, and a very important topic also, may be asked with your short notes, that is unpaid seller. From the term itself, you get to know what is the meaning of unpaid seller. Who is a seller? A person who sells or agrees to sell the goods to the buyer is the seller. You got to know who is the seller. Unpaid. He is not paid even after the delivery of the goods. Now, what are the rights he has got? That is what we are going to discuss in this topic, which is given under section 45 subsection 1. Seller. So, he is deemed to be an unpaid seller when there is a non-payment. Non-payment in the sense the whole price not paid or tendered. The entire price for which the delivery he has made, he has not been paid, that becomes non-payment. The second part is when there is a dishonor of NI. NI in the sense negotiable instruments. Remember, NI is negotiable instruments. When there is any dishonor of negotiable instruments. What are negotiable instruments? Those are bill of exchange, check, promissory notes, hundis, bill of receipts. All those are treated as instruments, negotiable instruments. When it is received, and in case if he does not get the money and it is dishonored, what does he become then? He becomes unpaid seller. Now the next point is in conditional payment. If there is any conditional payment, there is a condition. See, upon the payment, we'll be delivering the goods. And that condition is not fulfilled. Why is it not fulfilled? Upon whatever we stated that there is a dishonor. If there is any dishonor of negotiable instrument, fine. That condition is not fulfilled. It says that I give you a check for buying certain goods from you. And I give the check, today I have got the goods and I give the check for the next month's date, after 15 days from today. And if case you go there and you try to encash the money from the check and there is no funds, so dishonor. So you become unpaid seller. The seller is unpaid. He is not paid with this amount which he rightfully owns it. The next one is in conditional payment. It can be a dishonor or otherwise. What is this otherwise? Why do I use the word otherwise in this? Otherwise means, we'll get back to the example. The check is paid. Now I have paid the check in the month of February and I told you please encash it in the month of March. I'll see to that the funds are there. The check could not be submitted. Why? There was curfew, there was lockdown. So because of this he couldn't submit the check. Then because of this situation also, the seller becomes unpaid seller. So what are the conditions? Because of dishonor or otherwise, some factors which make the seller not to receive his money, thereby making him unpaid seller. Now, this seller includes agent also, that is under section 45 subsection 2. Who is an agent? Any person who is in the position of the seller. So seller is going to appoint an agent. We have already discussed about mercantile agent, right? So yes, even mercantile agent can be appointed. Under section 45 subsection 2, you get to know about the seller's agent or consignor, who become directly responsible for the price. Who is a consignor, ma'am? How does he become responsible? Assume that I'm the consignor now. Consignor is a person loading the goods on behalf of the owner. There is one owner and I am working for him. And it is duty to deliver the goods to the buyer and also collect the money. If I don't collect the money, I become directly responsible to my owner for the price and he becomes unpaid seller. Now the question is, what about small dues? If there is any small due, substantial amount is paid and there is small dues pending, the seller is still called unpaid seller only, no difference. So here he is still unpaid seller. The next part is an important part. These were the basics what we learned. Now starts with an important part. Rights of the unpaid seller, which is discussed under section 46. What are the rights of unpaid seller? He has a right against the goods and right against the buyer. What is this right against the goods? When the property in the goods is passed, that is, ownership has gone and possession remains. In the sense, here the seller is given the possession of the goods. Suppose there is some contract for sale of chalk. I have given. So he says that I am in need now, since the schools are reopening. We have this. I want the chalk immediately. I give him the possession of the goods. So I give him the goods. So the ownership is gone with him. But still, he said that, oh, there is some problem in my stationery shop. Will you please wait till 1 month, then I'll come and collect it. There is some old stock laying, I'll first dispose that and then I'll come and collect it from you. So I still have the possession of it. In case if he does not pay, what are the rights available for me? Right of lien and stoppage in transit. Here. Then against the buyer, right of unpaid seller against the buyer. What can he do? He has a right to sue. For what? For price, damage and interest. Price, okay, for the contract price, and if there is any interest for that, interest. Damage, in case the buyer, we have learned this, in case the buyer wrongfully neglects it or he does not want to take the goods, then the seller, he will sell it to other person, other buyer. And in case if he gets less amount than the contract price with the first buyer, whatever he has made with the first buyer, if he is getting a less amount, those are the damages. This amount has to be paid by the first buyer. Those are called damages here. I hope you are clear with this. So, in this, right of lien means to retain the goods. Lien, what did we study about lien? Lien means to have the possession of the goods until the debts are cleared. Till the amount is repaid, or if the person has taken a loan, till that loan is repaid, you can have the possession of the goods. Once the debts or dues are cleared, then you can release the possession. Stoppage in transit, in the sense you are going to regain those goods, recover those goods. Here. And one more important point which I will also be further discussing. Do remember, stoppage in transit. When can you stop the goods? When it is in transit, that is, it is going from seller to buyer. Only in case when the buyer becomes insolvent. When we will be discussing this in detail again. So I hope you are clear with the basics of this. Then, right to resale. The unpaid seller has also got this right. We already studied this, right to resale. So in case when the property is not passed, additional right of withholding the delivery also he has got in this case. Yeah. Now, we'll start with the first right. The first right is right of lien. That is given under section 47. What is right of lien? I told you it is to retain the goods. So, when can he retain it? Till the amount is tendered or the payment of price is made. The amount is paid to you, then you can release the goods. The situations. Let's discuss the situation. What is the situation? Goods sold without credit. That is under cash payment. Then also right of lien can be exercised. Then goods sold on credit and the period has expired. Initially, there was an agreement that yes, I will be paying you the amount within 6 months or within 15 days. And that period is expired now. If the buyer has not paid the seller with the money, then he can exercise right of lien. The third one is buyer becomes insolvent, then no option, he has to exercise right of lien. He has to take the possession of the goods. Now after knowing the situation, let's go to the rules. The rule one is goods must be in possession. It must be in the possession of whose? Yes, it is the seller. If the possession is also transferred, I gave you the example of chalk. If I give the chalk, I had made a contract with the person B that I will be supplying 100 boxes of chalk. And now if I even give up the possession also, then if he does not pay, I lose the right of lien. It is gone. So in case if I lose the possession of the goods, I mean the seller loses the possession of the goods, then the right of lien is also lost in this case. So when is the right of lien lost? In two situations, when that is the goods must be in the possession. If the possession is gone to the other party, then the right of lien is lost. And in case the possession of goods is lost, the goods which are in the possession of the seller is lost, then right of lien is also lost. The next point is a very interesting point. The goods are delivered to the carrier. Carrier are those who help in transporting the goods from the buyer from the seller to the buyer. But one point to be noted, but document of title in the seller's name. Seller's name. I'll give you an example for this. What happens? The seller says that he gives the goods to the carrier and he says that give the goods when you have to give the goods, only after receiving the money. Receive the money, then give the goods. If at all you does not give you the goods, don't give it to him. Get it back to me. What is it again? He is exercising right of, by taking back it is deemed right of lien. Clear with this? Possession is still with the, here the possession is with whom? The possession is with the seller. Understood with the condition? In this case, what the seller says that you go give the goods to the buyer, but upon one condition. In case if he pays the money price, then fine, give it to him. If at all no, get back the goods. It is deemed right of lien. Then if he does so, then he reserves the right of disposal. That is, he can sell it to others if at all the original seller does not pay him. Then lien only for price. So they cannot exercise, the seller cannot exercise lien for any expenses like go down expenses or if there is any interest as such. Why? Because it has to be borne by the seller itself. He cannot exercise lien for recovering such expenses. Clear? Part payment. When there is a part payment, it says that seller may refuse to deliver the part of goods on proportionate payment of price. So the price has to be paid properly. The next one is lien of partly delivered or retained goods. Now the goods are being partly delivered or if it is retained goods. Here I'll explain you. Please listen with concentration. There is an unpaid seller. He makes a part delivery now. He has made a part delivery. Now he can exercise and this buyer does not pay him. Now he can exercise right of lien on remainder goods. See the whole goods is there. We'll take an example for this again. 100 tins of oil. First he'll send 50 tins of oil. To whom? To the buyer. He is not paid. He has made a part delivery. Now he can exercise right of lien on the remainder for the payment and also recover the payment for the first part of delivery which is made and also for the remainder if he is making a delivery, both will be receiving it. Clear? So how it is lien of partly delivered or retained goods? However, if in an agreement they consider that part delivery is a full delivery, then right of lien is again lost. He cannot exercise lien over it. Lien irrespective of decree. It is irrespective of decree. Irrespective of decree. What is decree? Decree is an order by the court, right? Yes. Let's discuss under section 14 and subsection 2. So right of lien can be exercised even though court has given a decree. In the sense, if the court has made any order that yes, buyer, you have to pay this amount to the seller, the seller still has a right of lien. He can take, if he has a possession of goods, he can keep the possession of goods with himself and say that I know there is a decree, you pay whatever the decretal amount is given by the court, then I will leave you the possession, you can take the possession with you, I will give you the goods. In spite of giving decree also, he has a right to exercise the lien. The first right of unpaid seller was right to lien. Under that, the last point is termination of lien. When does this particular lien gets terminated? It is given under section 49 subsection 1. It says that on termination of the lien, the seller, he loses the right to goods and also to claim the amount. So when there are certain conditions given under section 49 subsection 1, it says when he delivers the goods to the carrier, that is to the transporter, and does not reserve the right of goods. In the sense, he does not reserve the right of goods, in the sense, he does not tell the carrier or the transporter that receive the money, then only give the goods to the buyer. He does not say that. He does not even get any document signed. We have already discussed how he reserves the rights. So if at all he does not do that, he loses the right of lien. Clear? And if the buyer or his duly appointed agent lawfully obtains the possession of the goods, if the buyer or his appointed agent obtains the goods, then again there is a termination of lien. The last one is the seller waives his right. He himself gives up the right that he does not want to exercise lien over it. Then there is a termination of lien. This termination, that is waiving off, can be either expressly or it can be implied. Implied is, by the way, by the act, he knows that the seller the buyer cannot give the money, he still gives it to him. It's okay, you keep the goods. He is doing it. So in such cases, by his acts, he is either expressly or impliedly waiving off his right, then he loses the lien over the property. So this is about the lien. The next right which the unpaid seller has is right of stoppage in transit. So as I've told you already, when can the goods be stopped in transit? It is only when the seller finds out that the buyer has become insolvent. The main point. When he becomes insolvent, who? The buyer, then he has got this particular right to be exercised, that is right of stoppage in transit. Well, there are certain conditions also when he has lost the right of the lien. Already it is going, it's in transit, it is nearing the buyer, then again he cannot stop it. Then the buyer is insolvent. As I told you, buyer should be insolvent. Then also, when he has got a right of stoppage by giving a notice, notice to whom? Suppose, now let's take an example. It is going through a transporter, that is a carrier, from seller to the buyer. Now he can somehow give the information to the person in person, the person who is transporting, that to stop it and get back the goods. If at all not him, at least to his superior, to his boss or the principal of that transporter. There is a transporter agency, there should be some employer, right? The main person. At least by giving notice to him, he can stop it during the transit. So these are certain conditions under right of stoppage in transit. The next point to be noted here is, when is it said to be deemed in transit? So it is said to be deemed in transit when from the time of delivered, when the goods are delivered to the carrier, that is the transporters, until the buyer takes delivery from there, till there it is said has it to be in transit. You can call it as deemed to be in transit. These are some of the important things which you have to know when you are speaking about right of stoppage in transit. Then there is another thing to be noted here, redelivery to seller. What is this redelivery to seller? So what happens, the seller, there is a seller, he gives that please stop the goods which you are taking in transit. This carrier or the transporter, he re-delivers the goods back to seller now. Isn't it? So seller says don't go, give it to the buyer, you come back when you are in transit, and he comes back and he re-delivers it to the seller. So this is re-delivery to the seller. This term is called re-delivery to the seller. Now who has to bear the cost in case of re-delivery to the seller? It is the seller only, because he is ordering. The transporter or carrier doesn't know that the buyer has become insolvent or there is any problem that the buyer cannot pay the money. That is why the seller is asking him to re-deliver the goods. So thereby the seller becomes liable. So the goods in transit can be stopped only for price. Only for price. Remember, it is only for price only amount. Well, we have certain case laws, and this is the first one. The first case law. What happens in this case law is, there is delivery of goods by the seller on board of ship that belongs to buyer. He has loaded their goods there. And also the bill of lading that says that yes, the particular goods have been delivered, the quantity, everything is mentioned in that bill of lading is taken in buyer's order. Everything is done. It was held that in this particular case, it is held that there is already delivery of goods from seller to the buyer. So now under this circumstances, he gets to know that the buyer is insolvent. Meanwhile, now he cannot ask or stop the goods in transit. He loses his right of stoppage in transit, because there is already delivery of goods in this first case. Clear? In the second case, that is GIP, Railway Company versus Han Mandas, the case is quite interesting. What happens in this case is, the seller handed over the goods to this particular railway company, GIP Railway Company, for transportation to the buyer. The goods reached the buyer's destination. Meanwhile, when it was reaching, the seller gets to know that the buyer has become insolvent and he won't be able to pay money. Now, as soon as he gets to know this information, he writes a telegram to the railway company to stop it, to stop the delivery to the goods, delivery to the buyer. Since he has become an insolvent, he sends a delivery. Before the telegram could be reached to the railway company, the railway people had already given the possession, or they had made the delivery of the goods to the buyer. It was already loaded in buyer's cart. Before they left the railway compound premises, the telegram was reached to the railway officer. In spite of getting the railway telegram, they did not stop. Now the seller files a case against the railway company saying that why didn't you stop it? You are acting like a transporter or a bearer to me. So it was your duty to stop it. But you did not do. So you have to compensate for the losses now. It was held that by the court, after the delivery by the railway department, they are no more the bailee. There is no contract of bailment also. Once delivered, he is over. So the seller could not recover any damages from this particular railway company. The last part in Sale of Goods Act is suits for breach of contract. This part is dealt in chapter 6 from section 55 to 61. So, what are the remedies that the two parties, that is the seller and buyer, what we have studied, has got against each other for the breach of contract? There are two parties, what we have learnt. So, what are the remedies which the parties have against each other? The first part will be learning seller's remedy. What is his remedy against who? The buyer. So, it is given under section 55. Section 55 subsection 1 gives you that, it tells you that in case if the buyer, he neglects, that is wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay to whom? The seller the money or the price, then the suit for price can be brought against the buyer by the seller. This is the first remedy which is given under section 55 subsection 1. Now the subsection 2 says that where under a contract of sale, there is a contract of sale, the price is payable on certain day, irrespective of delivery. And the buyer again, what he does is, he wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay the amount to the seller. But here one point to be noted is, the property of the goods are not passed. It is not passed, and the goods have not been appropriated to the contract. The delivery has not been done. Nothing has been done. Under such situation also, the seller has a remedy against the buyer, and that remedy is suit for price, which is given under section 55 subsection 2. Clear? Now, to understand this in a better way, let's take an example through a case law. What is that case law? Dunlop versus Crotty. In this particular case, there was a contract of sale for certain quantity of iron, and they said that delivery has to be paid between 3rd March to 30th April. Between these dates, certain quantity of iron has to be delivered from seller to buyer. So the price was also agreed to be paid by 30th April. The price to be paid by 30th April. By 30th April, there was delivery of only certain portion of iron which was paid. And the buyer said that he does not require the remaining delivery. Only a portion is made, and the remaining portion, he said, I don't want the delivery for the seller. Now, since the delivery was made for certain amount and certain quantity, and now the buyer says that he only requires only half portion of delivery, and rest he does not need it. Now, what is the price he has to pay? So it was held in the court that there can be a recovery of price for the whole iron for which they had initially made a contract, even though the undelivered part was not specifically appropriated to the contract. Even though it was not delivered, still the whole iron, whatever was the contract, that has to be paid under suit for price under section 55. Clear with this? Next is suit for damages. Again, when does the suit for damages arise? When the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay for the goods. Then they can sue for the damages when for non-acceptance. Here, very important, when you speak about damages, the thing should come to your mind is it is for non-acceptance. When it is not been accepted, only then you can file a case for damages for non-acceptance. So here what is the thing is, this particular thing arises when the property in the goods has not been yet passed to the buyer. The property is not yet passed to the buyer. If at all the property was passed to the buyer and he fails in the payment, then the suit for price can be filed. The case against the buyer can be filed. But if the property is not yet passed to the buyer, then what can you file? Suit for damages for non-acceptance under section 56 of Indian Partnership Act. We have in case law as an example for this to understand in a better way. The case law is Bangu Steel Furniture versus Union of India. What happens in this case is, there was a contract for supply of steel bins by Government of India by the appellants. Then what the Government of India, that is Union of India, it wrongfully terminates the contract before the bins were actually manufactured. There was a contract and they were going to start manufacturing. Before they could manufacture, they wrongfully terminated without even telling them. They terminated the contract. Now it was held that the goods were not passed right. It was not passed to the buyer. So you cannot apply section 55 and ask for the price. What you can do is, you can file a suit for damages for non-acceptance and recover the damages of the goods. Clear? I hope from this case law you are clear how when does the suit for damages arises and when was the suit for the price arises. Okay, after doing the seller remedies, now let's move on to buyer's remedies. Buyer has got basically 3 remedies. The first one is damages for non-delivery, which is given under section 57 of the Sale of Goods Act. Clear? So it says that seller, if he wrongfully neglects or refuses delivery of goods, then he can claim the damages for non-delivery, and also the rules contained under section 73 and 74 of Indian Contract also can be applicable. Yeah. Then comes specific performance under section 58. It says that the buyer can sue the seller for specific performance or for a damage under specific performance and the subject matter, but subject matter of the contract should be something, a very important thing or a rare goods. For example, if it is some antique picture or a painting, therein the action for specific performance can be brought in the court. That is given under section 58. Okay, and only the purchaser or the buyer can get this suit and not the seller. The next one is remedy for breach of warranty, which is given under section 59. So under this you have 2 things. Whenever there is a breach of warranty under section 59, there can be diminution or extension of price. You need not pay the price, or else can sue for the damages for breach of warranty. We already studied, if there is breach of warranty, what to do? Sue for the damages. Clear? Even the refund, at certain cases you can ask. We have an example for this, Manson versus Birmingham. In this case, what happens is, a buyer purchased a second-hand typewriter, and that is for 20 euros. After buying it, it is found that there is some repair required for the typewriter since it was overhauled, and the amount was spent for that also. Then later it was found out that the typewriter was a stolen one, and the true owner recovers the typewriter from the buyer, and this buyer files a case against the seller for the amount. That is, what is the amount he asked for? Whatever the initial cost he has paid plus for whatever the repairs he has made to the buyer. So the seller has to compensate the buyer. Here it is a breach of, since it's a remedy for breach of warranty. So I hope you are clear with the buyer's remedy also. The last part is the anticipatory breach, which is given under section 60. Anticipatory breach means when the contract is terminated before the due date has arisen. In the sense, there is a breach. One of the party refuses to perform the contract. One of the parties is terminating the contract wrongfully before the due date. For example, the contract was entered on 1st January, according to which the goods were to be delivered on 1st March. The seller informs to the buyer that, no, I cannot perform this contract. What is this? This is called anticipatory breach of contract. Anticipatory breach of contract is committed by the promisor himself by refusing to perform before the due date, before the date on which they have agreed, before that date only. If he refuses to perform, that becomes anticipatory breach. So section 60 says that, what is the section 60 definition is? When either party repudiate the contract before the date of delivery. So one of the party, he is repudiating before the date of delivery. I'm sorry. Next, the other party, what the other party can do is, the other party may treat it as subsisting and wait till the due date or date of delivery, or else he can even treat it as rescinded and sue for the damages for the breach. So basically from section 60 you can get to know that there are two options available. That is, what he can do, the promisee has got two options. What is it? The first one is he can treat the contract rescinded and he can claim the damages for the breach, anticipated breach, or else he can treat it as a subsisting and the contract is still there, it is alive, and he can wait till the date of delivery. In such cases, if the promisor, if there is a change of mind of the promisor, he can perform the contract, or else even sometimes the contract cannot be discharged by impossibility also. In such events they cannot claim any damages in such events if there is impossibility of performance. If the other party, if the buyer is waiting that yes he may perform, if the seller may perform the duty, for example, I'm just giving you an example, if he waits that okay we'll keep this contract subsisting and treat it that yes the buyer may, the seller may perform the contract. If he performs, if he changes his mind and performs the contract, well and good. If he does not perform and there is certain impossibility, if there is heavy rains or if there is a flood and it makes impossibility to perform at that situation and all, what happens? He cannot claim the damages. Clear with this? Okay, this is one part of your anticipatory breach. Now let's take an example and understand this better. Now A enters a contract with B to supply 500 bags of sugar as on 1st March. On 1st of Feb, A informs that he will not supply those 500 bags to B. Now, don't you think A has committed an anticipatory breach? Now, what is the option with the B? He can file a case against A saying that it's a breach and he can rescind the contract and he can ask for the compensation. Or another option, he can wait till 1st of March so that if there is a change in mind by A, he will perform the contract.